I never imagined my entire life could collapse and rebuild itself in a single day. But that's exactly what happened. The morning my husband learned he was about to receive an inheritance, he turned to me with a cold smile I had never seen before and said, "Pack your bags. I'm a rich man now." And just like that. After 5 years of building a life together. After working 2 jobs to keep us afloat. After sacrificing everything I had. He kicked me out of our home and filed for divorce. I didn't scream. I didn't beg. I signed the papers with shaking hands and walked out carrying 2 bags and a broken heart. But fate had its own plans. Because hours later, when the lawyer read the full will of my husband's grandfather. The man who threw me away like trash, the man who said he didn't need me anymore, fell to his knees in front of me. And for the first time in years, I felt the world shift in my favor. I used to wake up long before the sun ever touched the sky. Most mornings, it was the piercing sound of my 5:30 a.m. alarm that dragged me out of bed, but sometimes it was the cold, the kind that seeped through thin walls and cheap radiators. The kind that reminded you exactly how far you were from comfort. That particular morning was no different. I eased myself out from under the quilt, careful not to wake Tavarius. He hated being disturbed, especially too early, as he liked to say, even though he hadn't worked a steady job in nearly 3 years. My feet touched the icy floor, and a little jolt went through my whole body. The apartment was freezing again. The radiators in our drafty little unit barely warmed anything except the corner where they sat. In the bathroom, I flipped on the harsh light and stared at myself in the mirror. 32 years old, but I looked older. Dark circles, tired eyes, hair overdue for a fresh braid. I ran a hand down my face and almost laughed at it. Felt like I was watching myself fade, slowly, day by day. Behind me, I heard his voice. "You up early again?" Even half asleep, Tavarius sounded annoyed. "I have to be at work by 8, I whispered. "Go back to sleep." He groaned and rolled over. "How am I supposed to rest with you making all that noise before sunrise?" Noise? I was barely breathing. But I didn't argue. I never did anymore. 5 years earlier, he used to wake up with mechas my forehead, make me coffee, send me off like I was the best part of his day. Now, every step I took irritated him. Every breath felt like an inconvenience he had to tolerate. In the kitchen, I made myself a quick cup of instant coffee and swallowed a cold slice of toast while standing by the window. There was no time for a real breakfast. There was never time for anything. By 7, I was out the door, bundled up against the wind, catching the bus to the community health clinic where I worked at the front desk. It wasn't glamorous, not even close. Endless phones. Endless complaints. Endless pressure. But it was steady money. And at that point, it was the only steady money coming into our home. Tavarius always claimed he was working on his empire. First an online supplement store, then consulting, then computer repairs. New business, new idea, new failure every few months. Everything we ever saved, vacation money, emergency money, even grocery money, went straight into his next big breakthrough. A breakthrough that never came. Meanwhile, I worked evenings doing remote bookkeeping for small businesses, sitting at my laptop until midnight, eyes burning, hands stiff, trying to keep us from drowning in bills. It felt like I was the only one paddling in a boat full of holes. While the man sitting beside me refused to pick up a single bucket. By the time my shift ended that day, my head was pounding. But I still had groceries to pick up, dinner to cook, invoices to finish. That was my routine. That was my life. When I finally opened the front door at 9 p.m., groceries in hand, shoulders aching, I found him exactly where I always died, on the couch, scrolling through his laptop, crumbs all over the table, dirty dishes piled high in the sink. I didn't even ask what he'd done all day. The answer was always the same: business. I put my bag down and started washing dishes. You could at least take a break first, he muttered without looking up. You always doing too much. I paused, sponge in hand. If I didn't do it, who would? But I didn't say that either. What was the point? We used to cook together, laugh, plan our weekends. Now, we were two strangers sharing the same space. Except one of us was doing all the heavy lifting. He kept scrolling, probably reading another article about millionaire entrepreneurs who started from nothing. Meanwhile, I scrubbed baked-on food from a pan I didn't even use. When I finally sat down to eat a reheated bowl of soup, he strolled in, poured himself tea from the kettle I boiled that morning, grabbed an apple, and walked back to the couch. No, thank you. No, how was your day? Nothing. And still somehow he found time to complain. That night, when I asked if we could go on a simple walk on Sunday, just a walk, something cheap, something small, he didn't even look up from his screen. I ain't got time for strolls, Kez. I'm in a crucial phase. I'm on the verge of a breakthrough. A breakthrough. That word had become the soundtrack of our marriage. I heard it every month, every year, always empty, always recycled. I finished my soup quietly and went to my desk to start my second job, listening to the TV through the wall as he watched the game, shouting, laughing, living in a world I didn't exist in. And as I worked, hunched over my keyboard, I felt something in my chest tighten. I didn't know it, but that was the beginning. The beginning of the unraveling. The beginning of seeing him and myself clearly for the first time. Because sometimes, life doesn't break in one big moment. Sometimes it cracks tiny, painful cracks. Day after day, night after night. Until one day, the whole thing finally collapses. And I didn't know it yet. But my collapse and my rebirth were coming faster than I ever imagined. I don't remember the exact moment I stopped feeling like a wife and started feeling like a burden. But I remember the moment he made sure I knew it. It was late another night when I had just finished work, grocery shopping, cooking dinner, and washing the dishes. I was standing in the bedroom, exhausted, changing into my worn-out sweatpants. My back ached, my feet throbbed, and all I wanted was a shower and a little quiet. But Tavarius looked up at me with a disgusted frown, like he was seeing me for the first time and didn't like what he saw. You should really join a gym, he said casually, like he was commenting on the weather. You really let yourself go. The words punched straight through me. I froze, shirt halfway over my head. Let myself go. I worked from 8 in the morning until midnight. I barely slept. I barely ate. My life was a rotating cycle of exhaustion and survival. When did I have time to let myself go? Tav, I'm just tired, I whispered. I don't have time for the gym. I'm working 2 jobs just to keep us afloat. He scoffed, scrolling through his phone. Excuses. Everybody finds time if they want to. Look at Shanice Dion's wife. She keeps herself tight. Nails done, hair done, looks fly all the time. And you, well, you know what I mean. He didn't finish the sentence, but he didn't need to. I felt it. Every word. Every implication. I climbed into bed with my back toward him, fists clenched under the blanket, holding in the tears burning in my throat. I refused to let him see me cry. Not anymore. But the worst part? It wasn't that he insulted me. It was that he no longer saw me. I was no longer the woman he used to wake up early for. No longer the woman he brought flowers to. No longer the woman he kissed goodbye at the door. Now, I was the reason he wasn't successful. In his mind, I was the weight holding him down. And he made sure to remind me. The real wives' speech. A week later, I was frying burger patties for dinner. The smell of sizzling meat filled the kitchen as I mashed potatoes on the stove. Tavarius was sitting nearby, scrolling through his tablet, as usual. Out of nowhere, he said. You know, real wives create an environment for their husbands to succeed. I turned from the stove, spatula in hand. What does that mean? Take Marcus's wife, he continued. She don't work at all. She stays home, cooks, cleans, keeps the house peaceful so he can focus on business. I frowned. What are we supposed to live on if I don't work? He slammed the tablet shut, irritated. See? That's why nothing works out for me. Because I gotta worry about bills, you being tired, you being miserable. I can't focus. I stared at him, stunned. My hard work, my exhaustion were an inconvenience to him. He took a bite of the burger I had cooked, then grimaced. Too much salt. It wasn't. I knew it wasn't. He was just picking a fight. Picking fights had become his new hobby. I finished cleaning the kitchen in silence while he walked away, leaving his dirty plate right on the table, his own little declaration that I wasn't worth basic courtesy anymore. The slow erosion. Winter came and went. I kept working 2 jobs, carrying the weight of everything on my shoulders. He grew colder. More distant. Sometimes, he didn't even come home at night, claiming he stayed over at Dion's to talk business. I didn't ask questions. I was afraid of the answers. And somewhere deep inside me, deep down, something began to crumble. The version of him I once loved no longer existed. He had been replaced with someone else entirely. Someone bitter. Someone entitled. Someone hungry for a life he wasn't willing to work for. And someone who looked at me the way you look at an object you're deciding whether to keep or throw away. I knew things were bad. But I had no idea how much worse they were about to get. Because the day his grandfather died, the man I thought I married would disappear forever. Replaced by a version of him so greedy, so cold, so cruel, that even I didn't recognize him anymore. And that day was closer than I thought. It was an ordinary Tuesday evening in May, ordinary in the way pain becomes ordinary when you live with it long enough. I had just come home from work, dropped my bag on the counter, and started rinsing rice for dinner. The apartment was quiet except for the soft chop of my knife against the cutting board. Then I heard his voice from the living room. But this time, something was different. He wasn't irritated. He wasn't complaining. He wasn't sighing or groaning. He was excited. Excited in a way I hadn't heard since the early days of our relationship. Yeah, I'll be there tomorrow, he whispered into his phone. 11 a.m. Okay. Thanks for letting me know. He hung up and stood perfectly still, so still it felt unnatural, as if he was holding his breath. Then suddenly he jumped up, pacing around the room, rubbing his hands together with this strange, gleeful energy. I stepped out from the kitchen. Tav, what happened? He turned toward me with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. A smile that felt sharp. Granddaddy died. The knife almost slipped from my hand. His grandfather Eustace Vance was old, almost 90. We had only seen him twice, but still death is death. I reached for a towel, wiping my hands, ready to offer sympathy. Tav, I'm so sorry. Was he sick? But Tavarius didn't look sad. Not even close. He laughed at an eerie, excited little chuckle. Yeah, it's sad. But that ain't the main thing. The lawyer called. His eyes gleamed. He left a will and I'm in it. Something in my stomach twisted. A will? I repeated cautiously. Yes. A will, Kez. He rubbed his palms together like a man stepping into a casino. He had an apartment, a 3-bedroom downtown. Maybe more. Maybe money. Accounts. Property. I don't know yet, but I'll find out tomorrow. He paced the room, talking to himself. Finally. Finally I get a break. You hear me? It's destiny. A sign from above. I told you everything would work out for me. He was radiant. Vibrating with energy. Glowing with a joy that had nothing to do with loss. His own grandfather had just died. And the only thing he cared about was what he might receive. Something inside me shrank. And it hurt. The funeral? Not his priority. I tried gently, maybe we should think about the funeral. Auntie Verice will handle all that, he cut me off with a shrug. She lived near him. They were close. She can deal with that. I gotta focus on the inheritance. Focus on the inheritance. He didn't even blink when he said it. For the rest of the night, he couldn't sit still. He made phone calls, whispered excitedly, told friends he was about to be rich. He didn't ask about dinner. Didn't notice the rice boiled over. Didn't notice I went to bed without eating. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, listening to him laughing on the phone in the next room. This was the man I loved. The man I worked 2 jobs for. The man I carried on my back for 5 years. His grandfather's body wasn't even cold. And he was celebrating. The countdown to the will. For 2 days, Tavarius was like a man possessed. He Googled real estate listings in Indianapolis. He calculated how much a 3-bedroom might sell for. He checked the price of luxury cars. He looked at vacations, office spaces, investment opportunities. And every sentence started with, I'm gonna. I'll buy. My new life. Not once did he say we. At dinner, he looked at me with a critical stare. You know, when this money comes in, I'm gonna need a wife who matches the status. My fork froze mid-air. What does that mean? He took a slow sip of tea. I mean, look at you, Kez. Clothes old. Hair undone. No manicure. I'd be embarrassed to take you anywhere nice. Heat rushed to my cheeks. My hands trembled. Tav, we don't have the money for new clothes. Everything goes to bills. To your projects. He smirked, waving his hand. There you go again with the guilt trips. That's your problem, you don't know how to budget. Real women find a way to look good. I felt something crack deep inside me. Not a loud break. A quiet one. The kind that changes everything. But I swallowed the pain, said nothing. I finished dinner alone. Cleaned alone. And sat on the edge of the bed, staring into nothing. I told myself maybe he was just stressed. Maybe this inheritance talk had clouded his mind. Maybe when the excitement settled, he'd calm down. But I already knew the truth. Deep, deep down. The man I once loved was gone. Replaced by someone I didn't recognize. Someone greedy. Someone cruel. Someone who didn't have room for me in the life he wanted. And the day of the reading of the will would prove exactly how little space I actually occupied in his heart. The morning of the will reading felt strangely heavy. Not because I expected anything, I wasn't family, not really. But Tavarius, he acted like he was heading to claim a throne. I woke up to the sound of him pacing back and forth in front of the mirror. He never woke up before me. Never. But today he was already dressed in his best shirt, the white one we bought 2 years ago for a holiday party. He kept adjusting the collar, brushing his waves, turning side to side as if he were going to a photo shoot. Does this look okay? He asked, not because he wanted my opinion, but because he wanted praise. It's fine, I said quietly. You look good. Of course I look good, he muttered. Today's a big day. Today I find out how much I got. He didn't eat breakfast. Just gulped down hot coffee, burning his mouth, too jittery to sit still. "What time do you have to leave?" I asked. "By 11. But I'm leaving early, traffic, whatever." He glanced at himself again in the mirror. "Probably around 9:30. I hesitated before asking the question sitting in my chest. "Do you want me to come with you? For support?" He turned. The look he gave me was like I had said something offensive. "For what?" he snapped. "This is Vance's family business. You're not family." I pressed my lips together. "Family. 5 years together. 2 jobs. A life built with my exhaustion. But I wasn't family." "Okay," I whispered. He grabbed his coat. "I'll be back when I'm back. Might have to meet with the lawyer later. Don't wait up." And he walked out. Without a hug. Without a goodbye. Without looking back. The door slammed behind him, and something in me flinched. I didn't know it yet. But that was the last day I would ever wake up as his wife. The longest day of my life. Work felt endless. I couldn't focus. Every ring of the clinic phone startled me. Every break I checked my messages. I texted him. "How's it going?" He read it. Didn't reply. My stomach twisted all day as I imagined everything he might be learning about the inheritance. At 7 p.m., I arrived home to a silent apartment. He still wasn't back. I reheated soup, washed dishes, tried to finish a client report, but my fingers kept hitting the wrong keys. My mind wouldn't settle. At 9:30, I finally heard the lock turn. He walked in with a smile. Not a happy smile. A greedy one, sharp at the edges, cold, triumphant. "Well?" I asked, trying to read his expression. He shrugged off his jacket and flopped onto the sofa like a king returning from conquest. "Better than I thought," he said. My heart thumped. "What happened, Tav?" He stretched, cracked his knuckles. "An apartment. 3 bedrooms. Right downtown. A lake house in the suburbs. A bank account. Stocks in some company. Lawyer said everything together. About 2 million. Maybe more. 2 million. I sank onto the armchair, breath catching. That's a whole fortune." "A whole fortune," he echoed, eyes sparkling. "I'm rich now, Kez. Finally rich. Everything is changing." He kept saying I. Never we. Then he stood by the window, hands in his pockets, staring out at the city lights. "You know, Kez, I got a lot to think about tonight," he said slowly. "So I'm going to Dion's. Talk things over. Clear my head. But Tav. That's it. I'm gone." He walked out. Door slammed again. And the tiny, fragile hopes inside me collapsed. Something was coming. Something terrible. I could feel it. The blow that split my life in two. 2 days passed with him barely home, coming in late, leaving early, avoiding me entirely. He was a ghost in the house, except for the smell of his cologne lingering in the hallway. Then Sunday came. I was sipping coffee at the kitchen table when he walked out of the bedroom with a face I'd never seen before, cold, stone-like, determined. "Kezia, we need to talk." My heartbeat stuttered. "About what?" He took a glass, filled it, drank it in one gulp, then turned to me. "I've been thinking and I realized something." He crossed his arms. "You and me, we're stuck. We've been stuck for years. And I don't want to live like that anymore." "What are you saying?" I asked, standing slowly. "I'm saying I want a divorce." My vision blurred for a moment. Are you serious? Dead serious, he said. I've thought it through. It's the best decision for both of us. You'll find someone at your level, and I'll start a new life. I felt my legs weaken. 5 years, Tavarius, 5 years together. I supported you, worked 2 jobs, paid the bills. And I'm grateful, he cut in. But gratitude ain't love. And I don't feel that anymore. My throat tightened. You waited, I whispered. You waited until you got the money. That's why you didn't say anything before. You waited. His silence told the truth. Every ounce of love I had ever felt for him evaporated in that moment. He motioned toward the hallway. I packed your stuff, he said. Suitcase and 2 bags. You can get the rest later. My breath caught. You're kicking me out. Right now. The sooner the better. No point dragging it out. He grabbed a folder from the table and handed it to me. Divorce papers. Simple. No claims. Just sign. My hands shook violently as I flipped through the pages. The words swam on the paper. He leaned forward, smirking. I don't need you anymore, Kez. I'm rich now. I don't remember picking up the pen. I just remember my hand moving, my name appearing on the page, my heart going numb. 2 signatures. 5 years erased. Good, he said, taking the papers back. No drama. I always knew you were smart. He opened the door wide. Well, have a nice life. He laughed as I lifted my suitcase. A cruel laugh. A laugh that would haunt me for days. And I walked out. Down the stairs. Out into the bright spring day. Homeless. Husbandless. Heartbroken. But with my head held high. I didn't know it yet. But I had just walked out of hell. And straight into my destiny. The first few days after he kicked me out were a blur, like walking through thick fog, unable to see more than a foot ahead. I stayed on Tasha's pull-out couch, barely speaking, barely thinking. I went to work because autopilot carried me there. I ate because Tasha put plates in front of me. I slept because my body simply shut down. My phone was silent. He didn't call. Didn't text. Didn't check if I made it safely anywhere. It was as if I never existed. Then, on the 4th day, my phone rang. A number I didn't know. Hello. I answered cautiously. Miss Kezia Vance, a man's voice asked. My heart skipped. I still carried his last name. Yes, this is she. This is the High Tower Law Firm. My name is Attorney Thaddeus Sterling. I represent the estate of the late Eustace Vance. I need to meet with you regarding the inheritance matter. I blinked. You think you have the wrong person, I stammered. I'm not part of the inheritance. That was my ex-husband's grandfather. That is precisely why we need to meet, he said, urgency sharpening his tone. It is extremely important. Can you come in today? I have work. I can come at 6. Excellent. We will expect you at 6 sharp. Suite 305. When he hung up, I stood still for a long moment, phone pressed against my ear, heart pounding. Why would I need to be part of an inheritance discussion? Why me? Why now? All day at work, questions swirled in my head. Was there a mistake? Did Tavarius list me on something? Did his grandfather want to leave me something small? A keepsake maybe? My stomach twisted with nervous curiosity. At 6:15, after staring at the office door for a full minute, I pushed it open. The room where truth lived. The receptionist, a strict-looking woman in a navy suit, nodded at me. They're waiting for you. right through that door. I swallowed hard and entered. At the large desk sat a man in his 50s, graying hair, sharp eyes, calm posture. Attorney Thaddeus Sterling. By the window sat an elderly woman in a black dress and a small church hat. Auntie Verice. And against the wall, arms crossed, jaw tight, was Tavarius. When he saw me, his eyes flickered. Was it guilt? Fear? Regret? I couldn't tell. Miss Vance, the lawyer said, gesturing to the chair across from him. Please have a seat. My hands trembled slightly as I sat down. Attorney Sterling opened a thick folder. As I mentioned on the phone, a delicate matter has arisen regarding the estate of Eustace Vance. Beside me, Tavarius's fists clenched. I could hear the leather of his jacket creak. The lawyer adjusted his glasses. I will read the inheritance clause in full. He cleared his throat and began. The words that split the earth beneath us. I, Eustace Nathaniel Vance, bequeath all my property including the apartment at 8, Central Street, the Lake House property, all funds in my Chase accounts, and my stock portfolio to my grandson, Tavarius Vladimir Vance. Tavarius smirked. I felt my stomach sink. But the lawyer kept reading. However, the room froze. He may receive this inheritance only upon fulfillment of the following condition. At the time of claiming the inheritance, Tavarius Vance must be in a legal marriage with his current spouse, Kezia Vance, continuously for a period of no less than 1 year from the moment of my death. If the marriage is dissolved before the expiration of said term, or if at the time of my death they are no longer married, then all aforementioned property shall be transferred in full to Kezia Vance as a person who has shown true nobility and dignity. Silence. Cold, heavy, suffocating silence. The words hit me like a physical force. I stared at the lawyer. What? I whispered. All that property would come to me. Beside me, Tavarius erupted. That's impossible, he shouted, stepping toward the desk. Granddaddy would never write that. Attorney Sterling remained calm. It was drafted 2 years ago, notarized properly, signed in the presence of witnesses. It is fully legal. 2 years ago. Tavarius echoed, face draining of color. Auntie Verice stood with a slow, weighted movement. He saw how you treated her, she said quietly. He stayed with you 2 nights when he visited Chicago. He saw how she worked 2 jobs while you barked orders at her. He saw your selfishness. He said you needed to be tested. Tavarius shook his head violently. No, 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 no. The lawyer flipped a page. When did you file for divorce, Mr. Vance? He swallowed hard. 2 days ago. And the court finalized the expedited filing yesterday at 3 p.m., the lawyer said, tapping a printed document. Which means the marriage was dissolved before the required term. A final click of the folder. As of this moment, all property passes to Miss Kezia Vance. My breath caught. I couldn't speak. Couldn't move. Tavarius looked like the world was falling out from under him. No, he whispered. No, that's my inheritance. I'm the grandson. I have the right. You had the right, the lawyer corrected. Until you chose to terminate your marriage. The desperate knees of a man who thought he'd never have to kneel. Tavarius turned to me so suddenly I flinched. Kez, he breathed, stepping toward me. Kez, listen, it was all a mistake. I was stressed. I didn't mean what I said that day. I didn't mean any of it. He dropped to his knees. Right there in front of everyone. Hands clasped. Eyes wild. We can fix this, he begged. We can remarry. We can undo this. Tell him, Kez. Tell him we can get married again. Attorney Sterling shook his head. You may enter into a new marriage, but it will not satisfy the conditions of the will. The requirement of continuous marriage has already been violated. Kez, please, he said, grabbing my hands. We can start over. I swear I'll change. I'll be good to you. I'll give you everything, half the inheritance. More than half. You can have, please just don't do this to me. I looked into his eyes. There was no remorse. No love. Only fear. Fear of losing the money. Slowly, I pulled my hands away. You failed the test, Tavarius, I said softly. You kicked me out. You laughed at me. You called me a nobody. My voice didn't shake. Not anymore. You showed me exactly who you are. He collapsed further, forehead nearly touching the carpet. I stood. Get up, Tavarius, I said. Don't humiliate yourself. His voice cracked. I'll sue. I'll fight this. You may try, the lawyer said. But you will lose. Tavarius approached me, placing a warm, steady hand on my arm. Baby, justice has been served. Tears finally welled in my eyes. For the first time in days. Not from heartbreak. But from relief. Thank you, I whispered. Tavarius watched me, hollow, broken, destroyed. The same way he left me just days before. The lawyer nodded. Miss Vance, if you're ready, we can begin the paperwork. I'm ready, I said. And for the first time in a very, very long time. I meant it. I don't remember leaving the lawyer's office. I don't remember the elevator ride down or the walk to the street. All I remember is the sound of my own heartbeat, heavy, stunned, disbelieving. $2 million. The apartment. The lake house. The stocks. All of it mine. Not because I fought for it. Not because I asked for it. But because an old man with a wise heart looked at me 2 years ago and saw the truth I refused to admit. I deserved better than the man I married. But Tavarius. He couldn't accept it. Not for a second. He harassed me before I even left the building. I was standing outside waiting for my rideshare when I heard the office door burst open behind me. Kez. K-easy, wait. I turned just long enough to see him stumbling out, face pale, eyes frantic, tie half askew, like he had aged 10 years in 10 minutes. He rushed toward me. Please, he gasped, grabbing my arm. We can fix this. We can fix everything. I shook him off. There's nothing to fix. His voice cracked. I love you. It hit me like a slap. No, I said. You love what you lost. That's not the same thing. He blinked rapidly, panic rising. Kez, don't talk like that. Just say you'll think about it. Please. At least that. The car pulled up, then thank God. I got in and shut the door before he could reach the handle. His palms slapped the window. Kez. Don't do this to me. Please. The driver looked at me in the mirror. You okay, ma'am? I stared ahead. Yes, I said. For the first time, yes. From begging to threats to begging again. The next morning, the calls began. At first he begged. Kez, please. I can't sleep. I can't think. I'll do anything. Please talk to me. Then he guilt-tripped. You're really gonna throw away 5 years like they meant nothing? Then he threatened. If you think you can keep that money, if you think I'm gonna let you walk away with my inheritance, you're wrong. Then he begged again. Kez, please. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I'll go to therapy. Church. Whatever you want. I blocked his number. He used another. I blocked that too. He showed up at Tasha's building waiting in the cold, trying to intercept me coming and going. Kez, don't walk away from me. I'm talking to you. You didn't want me until you lost the money, I said, brushing past him. That's not true. But it was. Every word. He followed me halfway down the street. You can't do this. I need you. I turned back, looking him dead in the eye. You needed me when I was working 2 jobs. You didn't want me then. His face crumpled. I was wrong. Yes, I said softly. You were. And I walked away. Every step made the weight in my chest a little lighter. The night he appeared at the doorstep. One night, around 10 p.m., there was a soft knock on Tasha's apartment door. I froze. Tasha peeked through the peephole and groaned. Oh Lord, it's him. She swung the door open with more force than needed. What do you want? She demanded. He was standing in the hallway in wrinkled clothes, hair unkempt, holding a bouquet of wilted roses. For the first time in years, he looked small. Kez. His voice was hoarse. I sleep here sometimes. On the stairs. Just waiting for you. I need you. I can't do this without you. I stepped forward. Go home, Tav. I don't have one, he burst out. You were the one steady thing I had and I threw it away. Please forgive me. Marry me again. I'll sign whatever you want. I'll give you all the inheritance. Just please don't leave me. I stared at him for a long moment. He was broken. Desperate. Unraveled. But not because of me. Because of the money. Because of what he lost. And suddenly, I felt nothing. No anger. No sympathy. Not even hate. Just nothing. Tavarius, I said quietly. This isn't about the money. You hurt me. You humiliated me. You kicked me out with a smile on your face. And the moment you thought you were rich, you made sure I knew I wasn't welcome in your future. He shook his head violently. I didn't mean it. Yes, I said. You did. His shoulders trembled. People make mistakes. And some mistakes, I said, uncover the truth. I stepped back. It's over, I whispered. Goodbye, Tavarius. And I closed the door. His sobbing on the other side was muffled, but it didn't break me. Not anymore. Because that night, I realized something important. He wasn't losing me. He already lost me the moment he laughed while I carried my suitcase out the door. Now he was only losing the life he thought he deserved. The life he never wanted to build with me. The quiet power of choosing myself. The next morning, I woke up feeling something I hadn't felt in a long, long time. Light. Like a weight had finally been cut loose from my shoulders. I called Attorney Sterling and told him I wanted to begin the inheritance process immediately. He asked if Tavarius would be present for the follow-up appointments. I said, no. This time everything is just for me. And for the first time in years. I meant it. The days that followed felt like moving through a dream I wasn't sure I had the right to enter. Every morning I woke up on Tasha's couch half expecting someone to tell me it was all a mistake. That the inheritance wasn't real. That I didn't deserve it. That my life wasn't allowed to be easy. But each day, the truth settled a little deeper into my bones. My old life was gone. And a new one was waiting for me. The paperwork that made everything real. I spent the next week visiting Attorney Sterling's office so many times the receptionist started greeting me by name. We signed document after document. Transfer of real estate. Bank authorizations. Appraisal confirmations. Stock portfolio disclosures. Estate tax statements. It was overwhelming. Terrifying. And liberating. Auntie Verice came with me to almost every appointment. She held my hand, explained terms I didn't understand, made me tea in her kitchen after long days, and told me stories about Eustace. He was a fair man, she would say. He didn't tolerate injustice. And baby, he saw how you carried that marriage on your back. I had only met the man twice. But now, he felt like the guardian angel I never knew I had. And like every good angel, he left me exactly what I needed to fly. Officially rich and officially free. One afternoon, I sat in Attorney Sterling's office as he handed me a final folder. He smiled. "Congratulations, Miss Vance. Everything is now officially under your name." My breath caught. My fingertips brushed over the documents. The downtown condo. The lake house. The bank accounts. The stock portfolio. Total value. $2.5 million. A number I had never seen next to my name. Not even in my imagination. I walked out of the office and stood in the sunshine, letting it hit my face, letting the wind move through my hair. I wasn't trembling anymore. For the first time in years, I felt steady. Whole. Untethered. Alive. Moving into the apartment that became my sanctuary. The day I picked up the keys to the downtown condo, I cried in the hallway before I even opened the door. When I finally stepped inside, the air smelled like old books and polished wood. High ceilings. Big windows. Warm colors. Shelves lined with novels, history books, and framed photos. Everything felt peaceful. Thoughtful. Lived in. I touched the wall and whispered. "Thank you, Granddaddy Eustace." The apartment felt safe. Like a warm, gentle hug from the universe. I unpacked my 2 duffel bags in silence. Not because I was sad, but because I was overwhelmed by how soft freedom felt. Quitting the jobs that were slowly killing me. The next morning, I walked into the clinic, turned in my badge, and gave my resignation. My manager blinked at me. "Are you sure? You're one of our best." I smiled. "I'm very sure." Then I quit the bookkeeping job. No more spreadsheets. No more midnight deadlines. No more falling asleep at my computer. It felt strange at first, like my body was waiting for stress that never arrived. I kept reaching for tasks that no longer belonged to me. But eventually, the silence around me started to feel like air, not emptiness. Becoming the version of myself I used to sacrifice. I started doing small things at first. Buying clothes that actually fit me. Getting my hair professionally braided. Sitting in cafes with a book. Sleeping 8 hours. Lighting candles in my home just because I liked the smell. Little things. But they felt enormous. Then I signed up for French classes. I had always wanted to learn but never had the time or the right to dream. I walked into the classroom shaking, like a shy teenager, but the first time I said, "Bonjour. Je m'appelle Kazia." I felt something bloom inside me. Next, I joined a painting workshop. When the instructor handed me a blank canvas, my hands trembled. I hadn't painted since I was 11 years old. But once my brush touched the surface, colors spilled out of me like they'd been waiting decades to escape. Every stroke felt like reclaiming a piece of myself I had abandoned. The foundation that became my purpose. One evening, sitting on my balcony overlooking the city lights, I thought. I survived because someone helped me. Now I want to help women like me. So I started a charitable foundation, small at first. Just a website and a few meetings with non-profit consultants. But the mission was clear. To help women in crisis. The ones being used, abandoned, minimized, or financially trapped. We offered legal aid for divorce, help finding housing, employment resources, mental health referrals. The first time a woman cried in my arms, thanking me for helping her leave an abusive home, I knew. This was what my pain had been shaping me for. My suffering had not been pointless. It became fuel for something bigger than me. And Tavarius? I didn't think about him. Not out of bitterness. Out of freedom. He had tried to contest the will. The judge laughed him out of court. He had tried to find a job. But 3 years of entrepreneurship had left him with no skills, no experience, and an ego too big to fit into entry-level positions. He was living on Dion's couch, bouncing between short-term girlfriends who dumped him the moment they realized he wasn't rich. And me? I was becoming someone he never believed I could be. A woman who didn't need him. A woman he could never break again. A woman he would never touch, never influence, never diminish. A woman who finally chose herself. 6 months passed. 6 months of breathing without fear. 6 months of waking up without a knot in my stomach. 6 months of becoming someone I barely recognized anymore, someone lighter, braver, softer, happier. I painted. I studied French. I met new people. I traveled to Italy and stood on a bridge in Venice with tears running down my cheeks, not from sadness, but from the beauty of finally living. Every day felt like sunlight after years of rain. And then, one afternoon, I walked into the cafe where Tasha and I liked to sit. A little place on a corner near the park, warm lights, soft music, the smell of fresh pastries. I ordered a cappuccino and a croissant, found a seat by the window, and pulled out a book. I was halfway into a chapter when the door opened behind me, and something in the air shifted. You know that strange instinct, the one that makes you look up even before you understand why. I lifted my eyes. And froze. It was Tavarius. The man I once loved was gone. He wasn't the Tavarius I remembered. Not even close. He had lost weight. His clothes didn't fit right, cheap, wrinkled. His shoulders curved inward. His face looked older, worn, tired. His hair was uncombed, and the stubble on his jaw looked like he'd given up trying. The boy who once dreamed of being a millionaire was now a shadow struggling to stand tall. But the part that hit me hardest was the girl next to him. She couldn't have been older than 23. Bleached blonde weave. Heavy makeup. A low-cut crop top. Chewing gum like she was annoyed at the entire world. Her voice was loud enough for half the cafe to hear. You promised to take me somewhere nice, she whined. And you bring me to this basic place? God. Do you even have money? He didn't look at her. His eyes were on me. Kez, he whispered. Like he'd seen a ghost. The mirror of karma. The girl snapped her fingers at him. I'm talking to you. Pay attention. I got it, Candy, he muttered. Just gimme a sec. They walked to the counter. He pulled coins, literal coins, out of his pockets, hands shaking as he counted. The girl rolled her eyes dramatically. Are you serious right now? You're broke as hell. If I knew that, I wouldn't even have looked at you. I felt no satisfaction in watching him fall apart. No triumph. No revenge. Just clarity. Because I finally saw the truth. He had become exactly what he once accused me of being. Unsuccessful. Unworthy. A burden. And this young woman, Candy, looked at him with the same disdain he once threw at me. Life has a strange sense of justice. Sometimes it doesn't shout. Sometimes it whispers. This is what you made someone else feel. The last time our eyes ever met. When he picked up the 2 coffees, he turned again slow, hesitant, almost afraid. Our eyes met. He looked broken. Like every piece of him was held together with guilt and regret. He took a step toward me. But I calmly lifted my book. And kept reading. It was the cleanest rejection I've ever given in my life. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just detachment. Just peace. He stopped mid-step, frozen, wounded. The girl barked. Tavarius. Come on. He turned back to her slowly, shoulders slumped, and followed her to a small table in the corner. I watched him from the corner of my eye as I sipped my cappuccino. Not out of longing. Not out of curiosity. Out of closure. Pure, undeniable closure. Walking out of that cafe felt like walking into my future. I finished my coffee. Finished my croissant. Left a generous tip. Then I gathered my purse, stood up, and walked toward the door. I didn't glance back. Didn't wait for him to speak. Didn't give him anything, not a smile, not a nod, not a memory. He had taken enough from me. He would take nothing more. Outside, the weather was warm, an Indian summer breeze brushing my cheeks. The sun felt bright, kinder than usual. I breathed deeply. For the first time in years, the world felt full of possibilities, full of color, full of choices that belonged only to me. My phone buzzed. Auntie Verice. Baby, the apples at the lake house are ripe, she said. You coming to help me harvest this weekend? I smiled. Of course. I'll be there. I walked down the sidewalk, feeling weightless, as if I weren't just moving forward, but rising. The night I spoke to the stars. That evening, I stood on the balcony of my condo with a glass of wine. Below me, city lights shimmered. Somewhere far off, music floated through the air. I looked up at the sky, the same sky I once cried under, convinced life was over. And softly, I whispered. Thank you, Granddaddy Eustace. For seeing me. For protecting me. For giving me a second life. I won't waste it. I promise. The wind picked up like it carried my words away to wherever he rested. I closed the balcony doors, slipped into bed, and for the first time in a very long time, I slept without fear. Without pain. Without doubt. Only peace. Because I was finally, undeniably, beautifully free. And that was happiness.